Well,
All
brothers,
right.
I have 7:04, and I'm going to go ahead and get started with the cleaning town hall meeting. My name is John Ziza. I'm a member of 1848 Housing and 1848 Properties. Pete Welsh is on with me. He's also a member of 1848 Housing. We have two gentlemen who are experts that will be talking about cleaning with us and giving us background information. And that's Steve Ratterman and Woody Ratterman, and they are partners in CSL Properties. That's a property management firm that specializes in property management of fraternity and sorority properties. And so Steve's going to kick off the presentation by giving us all a background, and then we'll go into questions and answers and discussion. And if you have questions during the presentation, if you could please put them in the chat. There's a group chat. Just click on it and put your question in there, and I'll make sure that we address it at the end of the presentation. With that, I'll hand it off to Steve Ratterman. And for brothers, if you're not presenting, if you could put your phone on mute or your computer on mute, that'd be great. Thank you. Steve, it's all yours.
Thanks, John. I was going to mention the same thing because I was trying to look to see if there was a way to mute everyone, and there isn't. So if you could mute, we would greatly appreciate it. As John mentioned, I am Steve Ratterman. I am the founding partner of CSL Management. We're pleased to be back with Fiji tonight. I am a Sigma Nu, went to school at Indiana University. For those that may have missed that, the first time we were with you all. And again, very pleased to have a chance to be here. I want to thank each of y'all for taking some time out this evening to be with us. Know that there's a lot going on right now, especially a lot of questions and concerns as it relates to housing and how we're going to open up in the fall. Hopefully tonight we can give you a little insight about cleaning and what we need to be doing there. So about 6 months ago, this bugger showed up and kind of turned our worlds upside down. And as we've gone through this, one of the things that we've learned, as with all viruses, cleaning is a key component to what we're doing and should be doing with this. And so I want to make sure that as we go through tonight, let us know if you have questions in the chat, as John said, and we will get to those. We'll have time for Q&A at the end as well. So our desired outcomes tonight are just to equip you with the latest information, but know that the environment is changing constantly. You know, CDC is updating cleaning guidelines frequently. There's all kinds of new ideas and technology coming out, but do your homework on it. We're, you know, as I've said in a couple other webinars, there's some snake oil being sold out there, and you just need to be aware of that. We want to reinforce you're not alone. You've got your other Fiji brothers. You've got the 1848 housing. You've got all kinds of resources, and we'll give you some ideas of where to find those resources as we go through here. We want to try to simplify things for you and give you some very clear guidance as we move forward tonight, and give you some very actionable items. And one thing I want to make sure that we're aware of is that, you know, I'm going to use the term cleaning tonight pretty much exclusively, but there's a difference between cleaning and disinfecting. And if you do not clean before you disinfect, you're wasting your time. Cleaning refers to the removal of germs, dirt, impurities from surfaces, but it does not necessarily kill the germs just by removing them. It reduces their numbers and it reduces the risk of the spread of infection, but it does not kill or disinfect. It does not kill the germs or disinfect. Disinfecting refers to using chemicals such as EPA registered chemicals to kill germs on surfaces, but that's not necessarily going to clean the surface. So you need to do both. And so as I go through here tonight, I ask you to, just for simplicity's sake, to bear with me as I use cleaning interchangeably as one action, that it should involve both cleaning and disinfection. So let's talk about the why. Why is an important part of any change that we attempt to do as humans, and especially as men, I think sometimes. So why do we need to change? Why do we need to look at cleaning differently than what we have done in the past? Well, the first thing is it's the right thing to do. Obviously, there's a lot of concern out there about this disease. Don't know who it was that mentioned a minute ago that they had gotten it. I've been exposed to it and praying that I don't get it. But it's just the right thing to do for our members, for our parents, for our guests, for everybody concerned, for those that work for us, for the vendors that are coming in and out of the house. We need to clean, and we need to clean properly. Parents are going to demand it. I think we're going to hear from a lot from parents as we get closer to opening up our houses, and the parents are going to want to know that, hey, they're taking the right steps to protect our students and our children. The members are going to be more comfortable if we're doing the right things. They're going to feel like that as alumni you care, as the house corporation you care, and B, that that I think they'll be more comfortable being in the house and knowing that they're safe while they're there. And then, frankly, as an old marketing guy and a recruitment chairman from way back when, it's marketing 101. You're going to be able to get more people to live in, we think. You're going to reduce anxiety, and it's going to help you create higher customer satisfaction, whether it's a situation where you're fighting COVID or not fighting COVID. We have just seen time and again, not anecdotal evidence, but very direct evidence that if you're taking care of the house, if you're cleaning it, you're going to have more people living in it, and they're going to be happier with the product. So let's talk about creating a plan and what steps we need to be taking as we do this. One of the big things that we see when we first start working with our fraternity clients is that they're not hiring a cleaning company. And that's the first conversation we have with them is we need to get professional, and 99% of the time need to get professional cleaning in the house. To lean on our men at this point to, depend on them to clean and clean properly is probably A, not safe, and B, not advisable. So if you've not ever had a cleaning service, now's the time to really start looking at hiring one and looking at the advantages of making that move. The second thing is, if you do have one, if you have been working with one for some time, now's the time to start talking to them. Can they meet the CDC guidelines that are set? It's not overly complicated, but you need to be having that discussion. And do they have the capacity to do more? The rule of thumb that most universities we're hearing about are following is they're doubling what they used to do. So if they cleaned an area once a day, now they're cleaning it twice. If they cleaned it once a week, they're cleaning it twice a week. So, but that comes with a cost. So look at what you've been doing and look at what needs to be done. And then what's that going to cost? Is there a cost difference in doing that? And then schedule your summer deep clean now. If you normally do a summer deep clean before your men move back in, don't anticipate that your cleaning company is going to automatically have you on the schedule, because frankly, they are busy as all get out, as are all the cleaning companies, and because everybody needs for them to be there to clean for them. So make sure that you are having all those conversations with your cleaning company currently. And then finally, do we rely on our members? How do we proceed forward? And we need to have that, make a very informed decision about this idea of, can we continue to have our members cleaning the house, or the new members, candidates, pledges. I don't, we all call them something a little different. I'm not sure what Fiji does, But certainly, I don't think we want our what I would have called a pledge back 40 years ago, cleaning our house for any number of reasons at this point. So that needs to be a very informed decision and something we think a lot about. Do your homework. Even if you have a cleaning company, know what needs to be done so that you can make sure it's getting done. So look at the CDC guidelines. They're pretty clear. You can get to them through CDC, you can get to them through our website. And then we've also got other resources on our website related to cleaning and disinfecting and those kinds of things. So do your homework, find resources, find ways to learn more about what you should be doing, and then make informed decisions based off that. Engage your cleaning company and the members. So make sure that the cleaning company understands your expectations and put them in writing. As Woody likes to tell our staff, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. And so be sure that we're very clear about what our expectations are, and then do the same thing with the members. We've got to be clear with them, and we've got to put it in writing so that they have a checklist. That we have to really put it out there so it's very clear to everyone involved what we're doing. And then we've got to communicate it up and down the chain. Parents are going to want to know about it. Some universities are asking for plans as our fraternity houses open. So those are all things that we need to be prepared. If we get it in writing and outline it, we'll be in good shape. And now for some hows. So for the cleaning company, know that you will need to communicate constantly, making sure that they're doing what you need them to do, making sure that if the CDC does change guidelines, that they're aware of them and they're making the appropriate adjustments. Know what cleaning chemicals they are using and ensure that they're appropriate to kill viruses, especially COVID-19. So yes, we want to make sure that they're using disinfecting chemicals, and that does not include Pine Sol. Woody's got some great stories about Pine Sol and cleaning his fraternity house at Middle Tennessee back in the day. So, but make sure we're using the appropriate chemicals and the appropriate disinfectants to clean. Make sure that they are supplying their employees personal protective equipment and that they're requiring them to wear it. This is very important as we move along. And then also keep a log of who is coming in to clean. This is for contact tracing. So if something were to happen, we want to make sure that we have a list and we know what's going on and who's been in the house and who hasn't. Continuing with the cleaning company, know what they expect of your members to be able to do the job properly. Will they want your members to have PPE while they're in the house? Do they want your members to vacate the house if possible? Those are things that we need to be aware of so that we're as sensitive to the needs of their employees as we're expecting them to be sensitive to our members. Also, the members, what do they expect the members to do as far as making sure the house has some level of at least being straight so that they can properly clean? If there's trash all over the place, if there's plates and glasses, you're going to have a challenge with them. It's just going to cost you more money, and you need to make sure that there's certain things that they're going to want done. And one of those would be, as an example, if guys have toiletries all over the counters in the bathrooms, it's going to make it very hard to clean those surfaces, and that's considered a high-touch surface that has to be cleaned at least once or twice a day. So we're going to want to make sure that we're removing anything that's going to hinder being able to properly clean and disinfect. And then obviously make sure you understand their schedule. How many days a week are they coming? What time are they coming? Make sure all that's communicated and coordinated with the chapter. Finally, make sure that we're hitting our cleaning 2 times a day on the high touch surfaces. I'm going to roll back to that a couple of times through this. But, one of the things that we've been talking about with our clients is maybe we have the cleaning company do that when they come in. They're doing it once a day, and then the chapter does it the second time. There's just different options that we can look at there. You just have to work through it and figure out what's best for your chapter. But certainly our bathrooms and our dining rooms are going to be two critical areas where we need to make sure, along with, door handles, light switches, those types of things that we're hitting on all the time. And again, we think that while we don't believe that we need to be depending on our members, certainly we think they can be part of the solution here as we move forward going down the road. The key thing here is you just need to be prepared to spend more money making sure that your house is clean and safe for your members to be in. Let's talk for a minute about expectations for members and some things that we need to be sure that they have in the back of their mind. One thing to do is be sure, as we've talked time and again with everyone, that we're involving members in decision-making processes. Everything that we do affects them. In the end, they are our customer. If you sat in on any of our webinars to date, we talk a lot about how our members, how those people living in our houses are our customers, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of them and treating them as such. So let's involve them in the decision-making process to the point that we can. Make sure they understand, if they're taking part in cleaning, making sure that they understand the proper way to clean and how to use the chemicals and what to use for what purposes. Make sure that they're wearing appropriate personal protective equipment for cleaning. So as an example, they need to be using gloves and a mask, even if no one's around to clean, just to protect themselves from the cleaning and disinfecting chemicals. If our members are doing the work, we need to ask them to keep a log of what was cleaned and when it was cleaned and how it was cleaned. So that way we make sure that we've got a record of what's gone on. And then again, I don't feel like this can be quote unquote a new member project. This has to be a chapter project. It has to be the members living in project, so that everyone is involved. Everyone is taking part in protecting their brothers in this process. If the members don't take ownership in their own health and safety, at the end of the day, you're going to have to really focus on using a cleaning company, and the cleaning company if they're not cooperating with the cleaning company, cleaning is going to cost you exponentially more. So those are all things that we have to keep in mind when we're talking with our chapter and working through this. So let's talk about the practical here for a few minutes. And I want to make sure that as we're going through this, I want to give you some very practical advice and ideas of what we need to be doing. So as I've mentioned before, the CDC guidelines are your friend, but they're going to change, and you need to review them frequently just to make sure that you understand kind of where they are and what's going on. When you see changes, communicate that to your cleaning company and to the members quickly and effectively, so that we make sure that we've got everything there. And then make sure that they use an appropriate PPE while cleaning, like we've mentioned before. And you really think through your schedule and what your needs are, and be practical and realistic. So budget, you've got to take care of your budget, obviously, but you also have to really think through what are our members really capable of doing and doing properly. So let's talk quickly about what we should be doing. So obviously, number one, we need to be cleaning all the high-touch surfaces that we can. Clean and disinfect any high-touch surfaces daily is critical. Tables, hardback chairs, doorknobs, light switches, phones, tablets, touch screens, remote controls, any handles, desks, toilets, sinks, all of it. We're seeing some universities, they're putting up signage on saying, please clean the sink out before and after you use it. So they're putting the onus on the student to help with the cleaning. And I think to some point we have to do the same thing. When we are cleaning, we need to be wearing disposable gloves for both handling these cleaning and disinfecting chemicals. The gloves need to be discarded after each use. And if reusables are done, then they need to be cleaned and disinfected also. But we would really encourage you to get disposable gloves and make sure that your cleaning company is using disposable gloves on all these with all these products. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, if the surfaces are dirty, make sure we get them clean before we try to disinfect them. And then make sure we're using an EPA registered product for that. For soft and porous surfaces, you know, if there's any kind of contaminant or anything on them, you know, obviously we've got to get that cleaned off. But then we have to find the appropriate disinfectant that you can use on a soft and porous surface. They really feel like the vast majority of the way this gets transmitted is obviously through our breath and not through surfaces. But when it is on surfaces, the ones that they tend at this point to still be most concerned about are the hard surfaces. And we know that the virus can live there for at least 36 to 76 hours. So keep that in mind as you're talking about and anticipating how you want to plan moving forward. For electronics, it's the same thing. You know, follow the manufacturer's recommendations for cleaning, but you know, you need things that to clean with that have at least 70% alcohol when we're talking about cleaning with electronics. So the wipes or whatever it is, to get a truly disinfecting clean on there, they encourage you to have at least a 70% alcohol content in whatever you're using to clean electronic devices with. And that would include, in my mind, remote controls and those types of things as well. And then just reminding our members to use common sense, practical, preventive measures as they go through their day. You know, cover your nose, your cough, your mouth. Make sure that, you know, if you're sneezing or something, you know, cough into your elbow, as they say, or cover it. But then making sure that we're washing our hands and washing them properly with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, and really doing a good job with that. And in that, we need to be also considering providing signage to remind our students to do this, to remind the members that, you know, do the things that you were taught in kindergarten, because it's going to be very important as we go through this. One thing that we're hearing some about and we're seeing a lot about is foggers. There's a couple of different versions out there. Some are electrostatic and some are what they call cold foggers. The cold foggers are kind of like if you think about fogging a room, if it's got an insect infestation in it, this fog is just going to envelop the whole room. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's unnecessary. Others might be an electrostatic fogger, which you're going to point and spray right directly at a surface with a disinfecting solution. Now, if the surface is dirty, this is not going to work. It needs to be done, and it needs to be done following the guidelines of the manufacturer of the chemical or the fogger. Foggers, the cold foggers, we think may be a practical use if you find that someone does come down with COVID and you need to disinfect that room, their particular bedroom. That would be a huge situation to where you could really use that product. If you're just looking for day-to-day disinfecting, the electrostatic might be an option for you to use. We've seen some. We're still trying to figure out which ones we're going to recommend to anybody. I know Shanna's going to be on here tomorrow night from Upper Crust. They've got a fogger that they're using. I believe it's more of a cold fogger, and that's something that may be beneficial to look at. So we're not totally convinced that you need them. They're useful in very specific applications, but they're not the end-all do-all, and we don't need to depend on them as the end-all do-all. At the end of the day, basic cleaning and disinfecting are the best things to do with this cleaning. I'd like to talk for a minute on, what happens if it happens, right? At some point, it's going to happen. We're going to have a case of COVID in a house. We've already had 2 cases pop up, both in fraternity houses that are open this summer. Luckily, one was a live-out member, but he had been at the house, and the other case is someone that was living in the house. So what happens if someone does get it? Well, hopefully you have a bedroom and a bathroom that you might be able to set aside as a dedicated space for someone if they become sick with COVID or with any other, frankly, with any other serious disease or virus. You may want to consider reduce cleaning a little bit in that space to as needed, because you want to keep everyone away from that person as much as possible. You want to isolate them to avoid any unnecessary contact with that person. And as much as possible, that person should stay in that specific room and away from other people. Now, if if you've got a caregiver, like a house director, say, or a brother that's kind of watching after them, they should be taking this person cleaning supplies. Hopefully they can clean their own room. Hopefully they feel well enough to do that, especially their room, and if it's got a bathroom, that. But they can also be providing them supplies, tissues, disinfectants, toilet paper, paper towels, whatever they may need. And then if a separate bathroom is not available, once that person goes and uses the bathroom, it's got to be cleaned and disinfected immediately after each use by that person. You just can't take a chance by not making sure that we're taking care of that immediately as we move through that process. Again, make sure that we're hitting the high touch surfaces as frequently as possible, anywhere near or around that room where this person is isolated, if they are isolating in the house. And then if there's any laundry that has to be done for that person, the caregiver or whoever is trying to help that individual needs to have on personal protective equipment to protect them from picking up any virus that may be on any of the clothing, the bed sheets, whatever it might be, and washing that clothing as hot as possible, but following obviously the manufacturer's recommendations. So again, a lot of just common sense blocking and tackling, being smart, being practical about what we're doing, and that's all going to go a long way with where we are. And then I want to touch briefly one more time. I think we did this previously, but on our last call, but something that we're really running into, and while it's not directly related to cleaning, we do think it's an important topic, and it is part of the process, is that you should consider your air quality. What we're learning about this recently is very important, in that recent research says that the more we can turn over the air, the more we can introduce fresh air into our indoor environment, the more important it is. So we are 19 times more likely to catch this disease in an indoor environment, which we know because we're going to be more compact. We need to be really more face-to-face for 20, 30 minutes, they say, before you are going to really get enough of this pathogen inhale before you're going to really have a chance to get sick. So the more we can refresh the air, the more we can turn the air over, the more we can cleanse the air, the better off we're going to be. So what they're talking about is reach out to your HVAC. If you have HVAC in your house, and this could be any kind of forced air, whether it's just heat and or if it's cooled, reach out to your HVAC vendor. Use a better quality filter and change it more frequently. So if your system can pull air through a HEPA filter, that's way better than the $1.50 version you're going to get at Home Depot or Ace or Lowe's or someplace like that. look at a higher quality. If you can't use a HEPA filter, use as high quality filter as you can that your unit will allow you to use. Consider using UV lights and also in-unit air purification. These are things that can be done. You have to be very careful with UV lights. They will damage some components to your equipment. So you cannot just randomly go in and put UV lights into your equipment and expect that it's going to do what you need it to do. Plus, the farther you get away from UV lights, the less cleansing they provide for you. The rate of cleaning goes down exponentially. It's a long, complicated discussion, but just know that UV lights, again, are not the end-all do-all, but they could be a part of your solution. And then another interesting thing that we are learning about is that humidity levels in your house are an important part of this as well. So the recommendation is that you should keep your humidity levels somewhere between 40 and 60%. It helps minimize how far that the virus can travel. If you only have a boiler, this is going to be critical in your property during the winter. So it's something that you should really consider as the winter goes along. You've got to really pay attention to that. And then we also need to monitor carefully that we don't create mold. So obviously, if your humidity levels get above 60%, you're going to be creating an environment that could create mold in your property. So you don't want to do that. So you want to keep it, it's a fine line here, somewhere generally between 45 and 55%. Hopefully you'll be okay. And then one last thing, it's old fashioned, it's old school, but if you ever, for those of us that are old enough to remember attic fans, those things would suck a gnat through a screen and right out the attic. So if, that might be an option for you to, again, try to turn over air. It's like I said, you can't get any more old school than that, but it might be something that will work. So a few takeaways here: have a plan, develop that plan in conjunction with your students and with your cleaning company. Hopefully you have one. If you don't, talk to one, see if you can find a good quality one. You're welcome to reach out to us. If it's a campus that we're on, we'll be happy to look up and see if we can make a recommendation for you. Model appropriate behaviors and reactions and actions as we go through this. Our members are going to follow the example that we set as alumni and as advisors. So let's be sure we're giving the same proper example to them as we need them to follow. Remember that you are not alone. Again, you got the CDC, our website. I'm sure that Fiji, I know, is developing resources as well. So don't try to guess your way through this. There's plenty of information out there for you to put a good plan in place and figure it out. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we do have to take action as we move forward. So, think through all that. I know I went through that pretty quickly, but I wanted to give us time for questions and answers. John, I know you said you had some goals of what you wanted covered. Hopefully I hit those, but if not, I'd be more than happy to try to touch on anything else or answer any questions.
Steve, I think you hit the salient points. Thank you very much. I'm starting to get one or two questions. If you have questions, kindly put them in the chat area and we'll respond to them. The first question that we got is realistically, are we looking at twice the cost, or are we looking at potentially more cost for cleaning and disinfection?
I don't think you're looking at twice the cost, but you are looking at more cost. Now, if you've not in the past used a professional cleaning service, then your cost is obviously 100% more because you weren't expending that money. But if you've had someone work with them. We would encourage you to increase your service, but it has to be, you know, people say, well, what's your rule of thumb? Well, you know, our rule of thumb is what the universities have done is they've said we're going to do it twice what we used to do. Uh, you know, budgetarily, I don't know many fraternities or sororities that can afford to double up what they're doing in the past, but there are certainly, we can improve what we've done in the past and then try to work with our members to help fill in the gaps where we can.
Gotcha. Also, there was a note that a brother shared. If you're not speaking, if you wouldn't mind muting your computer, your telephone, that would be helpful for the rest of us. Another question that we got, Steve, was, you know, how deep is deep cleaning? What does that mean?
So deep cleaning is a term that we use that we do, you know, we encourage our clients to do it at Christmas break and at summer break, and especially at summer break. Usually summer break, the houses are empty, and we want the cleaning company to go room to room, get the corners, get the windows, get the window sills, get the blinds, get the fans, get the shelves in the closets, make sure the drawers are cleaned out. If there's, you know, make sure all the furniture is wiped down and disinfected. Just doing, make sure all the trash is thrown out. Just really going room to room and getting it as clean as possible for the students. Now, during the winter break, normally, you know, you're still going to have people with items in the house, so you're not going to clean the bedrooms, but certainly do a deep clean in the common areas where, again, you're getting really into the corners, getting a good vacuum, maybe cleaning doing a shampoo and cleaning of the furniture, the carpets, and those kinds of things. Maybe if you've got tile floors, you're buffing those out. It could be any number of things. It's kind of a house by house requirement, but certainly it's more than running through 2 or 3 times a week, dusting you know, the piano and sweeping the floor and, you know, running a mop across the floor and cleaning the bathrooms. It's certainly a much more intense and time just lost the word, but it takes more time to get through it than what you normally see, and it's usually on an average size house or say 15,000 feet. You're probably looking at $3,000 to $4,000 a year to do that.
Gotcha. Another question we have is, what guidelines are suggested from the undergraduate point man? What would you recommend to the undergraduate who's probably the house manager, if you will, responsible for cleaning and cleaning supplies, and that unfortunate fellow this year?
None of us ever wanted to be the chapter president. This year, we definitely don't want to be the house manager, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's that is the critical position this year. And I think what our recommendation would be, and Woody may want to chime in on this as well, but I do think that in all seriousness, you know, he's going to need to, if there was ever a time for a house manager to have a real committee and to have some people working with him, this is it. You know, normally the house manager, when we deal with them, their main goal is reporting to us, you know, damage to the house, making sure to work with us to get it taken care of and resolved. So, you know, this year is going to be expanded in that, you know, we need to make sure that people are paying attention to what the cleaning company is doing, because the alumni are not going to be there day to day. Most of our houses, while we wish they had house directors, probably most of our houses don't have house directors. So the men are going to, by necessity, need to be paying attention, make sure that the cleaning company is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so that's why we say we need to communicate up and down the line what's going on. So at some point, the house manager's got to go to class, we hope. So we just need more eyes paying attention and making sure that we're getting what we're paying for and things are being done as they need to be done. So, you know, having more people involved and then, you know, working with the alumni to have a plan to supplement whatever professional cleaning we can afford to do. We need to have a plan to supplement that so that, you know, we can get the high touch surfaces cleaned twice a week. What do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality of it is it's all budget related. And so for many of our fraternities, budget is critical, and it's important to understand that we're going to have to spend more and we may have less revenue coming in for whatever reason, whether it's less people living in smaller chapters, whatever it could be. So the idea and the concept is if we're only cleaning once or twice a week right now, could we add an extra day maybe by the professional clean? And anything that we can't get the professional cleaners to do, it is that other maybe 2 times a day where we have some plan with the brothers where they're going in, or if you have a house director or if you have any other type of chef or whatever, between that group, how can we put a system in place to where at least twice a day someone's going around hitting doorknobs, light switches, study carols, faucet handles, whatever it may be in our high touch areas? What is a reasonable expectation? And the brothers are going to have to buy in that live there, especially to help do that, not rely just on new members or whatever it may be. And I think one of the keys, Steve mentioned gloves, but at the same time, they need to be wearing a mask. And maybe I just didn't hear that. So
Yeah, I did. I mentioned that.
Okay. So that they have gloves and masks when they're doing it. But you're just going to have to come up with a system, the guys that will buy in. I think it's really important that you're including them in this process, right? We know our brothers will react better when they have some say in it versus just us mandating or dictating what it's going to be. You need to be having a conversation with the undergraduate men saying, look, this is real. We've got to do it. We've got to get a plan in place. It's important not only for your safety, but the safety of the community and everybody else. So what is realistic and what are you going to be willing and able to do? And make sure that you provide the spray bottle and the wipes or whatever it may be, and that they're educated. Steve was saying we used to clean top to bottom of our house in Pine Sol. That's not a disinfectant, and that's not right. So you're definitely going to need to make sure, hey guys, when you spray it, you need to leave it there for about 10 minutes because that's what the experts say for it to truly kill anything, and then come back and wipe it. So those are the main things. And I would just tell you back on the deep clean process is you could budget, if you're looking at, it's going to be between 20 to 30 cents a square foot is what we typically see on a deep clean. And it really depends on whether you're doing windows, how extensive to what Steve was saying on the floor cleaning and things of that nature. On the fogger systems, just for a pricing so that you'll understand, those are between 10 cents to 15 cents a square foot with a minimum. Normally what they're going to say is probably 750 to $1,000 is a minimum for one-time applications that people are going to be willing to come out and do if you do have somebody that gets tested positive and you need to clean their areas. So that's just some pricing numbers that might be helpful for you.
Thanks, Woody.
Sure.
I'd like to share a couple thoughts that I had, some notes that I had taken from other conversations I've had, and may be applicable to some of the people on the call. Some of you don't own your homes and you lease them. And in most cases, when you lease, you're leasing from the university. It's important that you reach out to the university and understand what services they're going to provide relative to COVID-19 and where their line of responsibility ends and where yours begins in terms of the what if situation and even the cleaning situation. Because of talking with some of you, the relationships are very different across universities in terms of what the university sees themselves being responsible for and what they see you being responsible for. So you might, if you're leasing from the university in particular, you might want to have a good conversation and get in writing what services they are going to provide. As well, I want to read it. Go ahead.
John, I'm sorry if I can just jump in there. This is Woody. A good thing to understand too right now is that I know Steve was speaking to. I'm sorry, it's raining where I'm driving, but what Steve was speaking to related to a what if, right? If someone gets diagnosed positive, what are we supposed to do? Can they isolate in the house? Or they're going to quarantine? I think it's really important too that you're talking with the universities, because many of them, even whether you're leasing from them or you're in a private fraternity house on private property, many of your fraternity and sorority life offices are trying to advocate to allow fraternity and sorority women or out of residents that aren't living on campus to be able to utilize a quarantine facility that they may be setting up for students. Not all of them will have the capabilities, just like not all of you will have the capability of having an isolation room with its own bathroom. But certainly be in conversations with your university about their ability to help you if someone does get test positive and needs to go somewhere for 14 days or somewhere to fill or to deal with the illness. We will tell you, I mean, most of your organizations, insurance folks, everybody, if we can get them out of the house to get better and to isolate somewhere else, that's goal number one. Goal number two is if we can't, then what can we do best based on our facility dynamics? But your comment about the university made me remember that, you know, many universities right now are trying to figure out that quarantine piece, and will certainly hopefully be able to be a resource to you in some magnitude.
Thanks, Woody. A point I want to emphasize that Steve made earlier is if you are relying on undergraduates to clean your house, this is the time to change that. This is too serious to rely on undergraduates to clean and disinfect. It's also the time to take a hard look at your contracted service company and make sure that they can provide the disinfecting services that may be required. And if not, look for alternatives or supplemental services, and seriously consider a property management company such as CSL to provide those services, because these people do this stuff every day. They have the tools, they know the processes. They can help you get through that situation. The next thing I wanted to share is some of you may not have the ability, I know Woody talked a little bit about the university chipping in, but some of you may not have the ability to maintain a location in the house for somebody who becomes ill. And so you may have to ask them to leave. And if that's the case in your situation, that's something you're going to need to communicate to both the members of the fraternity and their parents this summer, so that the expectation is clear up front. And it's possible that things will change by the time the school starts. But you may be in a small house that just doesn't afford the capability for somebody to be quarantined. And so you need to come to grips with what you would do in that situation. For another point, for members living in the house and those who are members of the fraternity but don't live in the house, you need to think about what PPE requirements you have of them. Do they need to bring their own thermometer? Do they need to have masks? Do they need to have gloves? Do you plan to provide that? What's the expectation for brothers and guests coming to the house? And you know, how are they going to meet? How are they going to interact in common areas? You know, if they're playing pool, what's the process when they're done playing pool? They should probably sanitize the balls and the cues and the table and everything they touch. So you need to think about those kinds of things that you have in your house and how you can manage those spaces. And what I'd say to that as well is anywhere you can eliminate a touch point, you need to think about those opportunities and take advantage of them. Key fobs might be an opportunity where you can eliminate a touch point. Soap dispenser, battery operated soap dispensers in the bathrooms could be another relatively inexpensive solution that could aid in that regard. The touchless switches, electric switch, light switches, and the ones that have the sensitivity to, you know, people walking into the room and coming on and going off when no one's in the room. Those could be things to consider.
John, one quick one quick thought on that. When you're considering those touchless sensors for people coming in and going out of rooms, one, bathrooms are a favorite place for people to put those in, and inevitably someone gets in the shower, or someone goes in the toilet stall, and it goes
Light
off,
goes out.
and then you're sitting there in the dark. So we would encourage you, if you're going to turn, get a light switch, turn the bathroom lights on, and put a plate over it so that you can get the plates that kind of go over the light, the switch, and keep the light on permanently so that it's not one of those places where we would encourage you to do that. The other thing that we've had some people talk about getting the touchless faucets, but the problem with that is you can't control the temperature. So if you're shaving, you can't get hot water. If it's brushing your teeth, you don't want to brush your teeth, at least I don't, with warm water. So there you go. So just kind of as you're going, touchless is really good, and we're encouraging that, and a lot of your recommendations were spot on, but be sure that we're thinking through what that looks like coming down the road at us as well.
Yep. To continue, in addition, anywhere where you may have like pens and a cup where it's easy for people to use, or utensils or other convenience items, you might want to consider removing those. Signage we talked about. I think signage is going to be important for all of us. I know at Ohio University, they're requiring one direction through the fraternity houses. So there's only one entrance allowed with multiple exits, and they want signage in all those locations so that they control the flow of people through the house. As well, you may need to put signage up relative to the number of occupants in a particular room. You need to think about that. For your food service, I know this is going to get discussed tomorrow, and I'm just going to hit it very lightly. If you have your own cook, you need to make sure that your cook knows and is following the local healthcare regulations, and you need to have some way to make sure that they're doing that. I think in many locations, they're required to take their temperature, and they're required to do some sort of sanitization or disinfection after every cooking session or when they leave for the day. So you're just going to have to review your local healthcare regulations and make sure those are being followed. If you outsource your food service, you just need to make sure you understand what services your outsourced solution provides, and what additional costs you may incur, because they may not be able to provide buffet style meals, and it may be all takeaway containers for meals, which will mean increased cost. It might mean that soda fountains may not be permitted because those are touch points with people putting their cups back on those devices. So you may have to disable those or come up with a different solution for providing soda and water. Again, all these things are little things, but they cost money. Other ideas that I had as I continue, supplies. If you haven't purchased supplies, and you know from your home use that some of that stuff is pretty limited, toilet paper, paper towels, hand sanitizer stations, and sanitizer. I have Clorox wipes, but any kind of disinfecting wipes, soap dispensers, hand dryers if you need them. You may be required by the university to have thermometers and take everybody's temperature who comes into the house and record it for tracing. So you might want to consider, even if they don't require it, you may want to have a thermometer or two in your first aid kit just in case somebody may show symptoms. And you're going to want to have PPE. Now, depending on what you plan to provide the people and the members in the house, that may be PPE for the people working in the house, and it may be PPE for the members of the house. That's really your call, but you're going to need to purchase that. And one other comment regarding PPE is that our friends at Upper Crust have offered to be a PPE resource for us. So if you go to their website, they have a link where you can actually purchase PPE equipment from them. I know that stuff is hard to locate, and Shana led us to believe that they had a pretty ample supply. So take advantage of that if you don't have your PPE yet.
John, we also have resources related to that as well. If anybody runs into a problem where we can get gloves, masks, hand sanitizer, those kinds of things. So we're focused not so much on the cleaning stuff, but really on the personal protection of our members and our employees. So, you know, it's not our primary job and we're not promoting it real big, but we do have it available if somebody runs into an issue.
Thank you, Steve. We'll make sure to put that on our website. And other resources I wanted to make sure that you all knew were available to you. We talked about the CDC guidelines. There's also state and local health officials, and you want to pay close attention to what their guidelines are, because those are the ones that are going to put the hammer down. And you need to follow their guidelines, particularly the local health officials in your community and whatever university requirements are imposed on your chapter houses. Us at 1848 Housing, we're available to you as a resource. Email or call us. Our information is on the website. Holmes Murphy, our insurance company, they have some really wonderful information on their website relative to COVID-19 and insurance and cleaning and sanitization that you might want to take a look at. Some of you may require legal assistance to ensure that you're in compliance with whatever your local laws and governance is. And so you may need a local attorney, or you could reach out to our friends at Fraternal Law Partners who provide fraternity law services. In addition, you know, look for resources like, you know, property management service providers like CSL Partners, who were kind enough to give us their wisdom today. Are there any other questions? I'm not seeing anything in chat.
Well, John, we would just invite everyone to, you know, stay in touch with us. I've thrown up mine and Woody's, and Scott Fussell is our Director of Education. Our contact information on the screen here briefly. And we'd like to really thank you guys again for inviting us back to participate in another town hall with you all. And if there's anything we can do to help, please let us know. And again, we've got a ton of resources on our website and links back to a lot of those organizations you just mentioned. So we're trying to create a one-stop for everybody. So just go to our website, look for the COVID-19 link, and it will take you to a pretty clear menu of items and resources.
Steve, Woody, thank you very much. Great job tonight. Really appreciate it. Brothers, I wanted to remind you that tomorrow night, Pete Welsh is going to be leading a town hall discussing food service. So that starts at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Hope you can join us then. If there are no other questions, I bid you a good evening. Thank you, brothers.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, gentlemen, from CSL Partners.